It's Ducky, and in today's video we have a really exciting new art supply to try. If anyone's been following me for a while, they'll know I am absolutely sick to death of my Poscas, and I've been trying to use them up for a while now. And it's got to the point where I have a very bizarre selection of colours left, which is a bit impossible to really make any cohesive art with. So I caved and I bought some new acrylic markers, and these are brush tip. I'm so excited about them. Of course, I used the Sarah Nay Clark acrylic marker video to decide on which markers to get, and the ENMY direct liquid ones seem to be the best, so I got the 80 set, which is the biggest set they have currently. So let's get into it. First impressions of these markers. I filled in the swatch sheet the minute I got them because I was too excited to remember to film it. And just look at those colours. That's just one pass. There's no streakiness. Yeah, really beautiful colours. Lots of colours. I really like the colour selection. I think my only complaints are that the greys and browns are a little bit limited, and a couple of the colours are pretty similar. But I can see enough of a difference between them that it would make me use them for different things. Like, these are quite similar, but one's warmer and one's cooler. You know, there's all those kind of differences. They came with this sticker sheet. I don't know if that would pick up very easily on camera. To put on the barrel of the markers. There is a sticker on the lid of the markers, but obviously when you have them in this position you can't see the lid of the sticker on the lid, so I can understand why that is. The barrel is the same for every single marker, so I can imagine it keeps costs down for them to not put the label on here, and I'm all for keeping art supplies somewhat affordable. However, I am just a little worried that that might be a bit difficult for someone with limited hand or finger dexterity to put these on themselves. I know there are days when I would not be able to do that myself. I do have one cap where the label has entirely rubbed off, and it seems like it's the same material as these stickers, so I am a little worried that these labels may not stand the test of time. And also, being a label and not being printed on, I don't know whether over time these will start to peel, but that's not the end of the world. The set also already came in this beautiful rainbow order, which I love. It means I'm not spending far too long trying to decide what is the perfect rainbow order. I'm sure many other artists relate to that. I also feel like the color codes on these make a lot of sense compared to, say, the original Uhu alcohol markers. Those color codes drove me insane because I still have the old ones. Sadly, I have noticed that the case is missing one of its clips, and I can't find it. It wasn't in the box, so I don't know if it came off shipping or if it came off before it shipped. It's not the end of the world to me. Once I have a house, these probably won't be getting kept in this case anyway. They'll probably be kept in a wooden organizer like my Who's will be, but that is something to keep in mind. However, because it does clip in place with these pegs here, I find that if I line it up properly with the one clip, it doesn't, like, you know, it holds itself pretty well. It will come undone a bit, but yeah, it's not an issue for me, but it might be an issue for someone else. I did have to buy this off Amazon, which I really try to avoid doing. However, the shipping, if I were to buy it on the ENMY site, was just a little too much for me, and I needed them fairly quickly for my arcane drawings a couple of videos ago, which I used, I think, these two colours. So I have used those two colours a little bit. It's not enough to get a proper first impressions. Now, it also came with these free pieces of paper that are made for acrylic markers. I've never used any paper like this. It is only 5 sheets, and I doubt I'll be buying specific paper for my markers once I have used it up. I'll probably go back to my printer paper, but we'll I guess we'll give it a try out on this. I am curious if it's going to be similar kind of feel to this paper. Okay, yeah, it does feel similar. I don't think it is the same, but it does feel similar. Paper is pretty thick. It feels pretty nice quality. Let's test out some of these colours. Oh, I don't know what to do. So you can see these are really juicy, and they have a good amount of difference in weight variation. I do need to learn how to use this brush tip because it is different to my Who markers. It's how to control it, but I'm really liking it. Let's have a go at doing some blending. I really don't know how these are going to blend. Okay, wow, that's a really nice blend. I feel like this blend will be a bit more difficult. Not quite so easy to blend those colours, but they do blend. I wonder what they're like for lettering. Okay, yeah, these are really, really nice. It's definitely going to take me a little bit of getting used to get the really smooth, thin lines. But I am really enjoying these. They definitely take a little bit longer to dry once you start layering than if you layer them before they are dried. But that's kind of expected with any kind of paint or wet mediums. Okay, so we've obviously done these testings and there is no bead through on this paper. I think we'll just go on to having a play about with these a bit more. Okay, I'm going to use this as a reference photo. I'll link where I found it down below. I really enjoyed making art with these markers. They go on really nice. I have noticed a couple of them were a little less juicy than the others, but if I put the lid back on and had them lying downwards, then they went back to being juicy after a while. I love how these layer on top of one another. Some of the lighter colours need a second coat on top of the darker colours, but that's something I would expect from most paints anyway, so that wasn't a surprise to me. I also did a lot of layers in this piece and I didn't get any issues with pilling or anything. I don't know if my trusty printer paper would hold up quite as well. I will have to test it in the future, but I know my Poscas used to completely chew up any kind of paper, especially one with tooth, which this paper has. I will say if you're using some of the super juicy markers, I would suggest letting them dry a little before layering, which is literally like 30 seconds at most. I'm just impatient, because especially when I did the practice eye, it started sitting on top of the paper and took longer to dry because I kept trying to layer on a very small area instead of giving it a couple seconds to dry between layers. I really loved this first drawing, painting. Is it painting or drawing with these? I'm gonna go with painting for this video. I don't think I've ever painted a desert scene, and I realised that a lot of desertscapes actually aren't just straight up yellow, so that was fun to learn. I don't think I've ever really painted in this style either, but I love landscapes in this style. I don't know what this style would be considered, but I love the blocky colours and building up all the different layers. I love the colour selection for this. The only difficulty I had in colour selection was with the light yellow. It was a little too light, but I just kind of blotted it so it showed the darker colour below it and it came to a colour I really liked. I'm very used to my Ahua markers which show the colour below because they are transparent, so it's definitely a learning curve getting back into learning how paint works because I just haven't really, I've used my Poscas here and there, but I hate using them, and I haven't really used acrylic markers or just acrylics in quite a long time, so that was fun. I also used to water my acrylic down often when I was painting with acrylics, a bit like how you would use gouache, so I never really painted in this way anyway. Wow, phone died, and I didn't realise until I had completely finished the piece of artwork, so I guess we'll do another one in this video. I have this reference photo from the same website that's linked down below, and I'm gonna have a go at painting this one. I have really enjoyed using these pens. The colour payoff is great. They layer beautifully, and again, I didn't have too many issues with the colour selection. I can imagine there will be times where I'm missing colours, especially with those browns and greys, but an acrylic marker is always going to have that issue because it's pretty much colours. Even with my 250 Ahu alcohol markers, there's still colours I find wishing I had. I bought these for like $69.99, which comes out at like 87 pence per marker, which is a really good price. It is a big upfront cost, and I don't think there's any refills or single pens available currently, so once you've used a colour up, either you're buying an entire new set for just that colour, or you just can't use that colour anymore. So you do definitely have to think about that. Given I think they're a pretty new company, I hope this is something they eventually end up adding to their website. I've also just had a look at their website, and I can't seem to find anything that says anything about any kind of sustainability practices or anything like that, so that's also something to keep in mind. I don't tend to buy many art supplies. I like to use what I have, so for me the sustainability isn't too big of a problem because I'm not buying lots and lots of art supplies. But if you're buying more art supplies, maybe you want to be a bit more careful about sustainability. I don't know. I care a lot about sustainability, but I think every now and again buying an art supply that isn't sustainable isn't the end of the world, because art leads to a better place, I think, and a better world. Also, if you're here for a super comprehensive review, I would suggest maybe checking out the video I mentioned at the beginning and is linked below by Sarah and A. Clark, because they go into much more detail about everything than I could ever. So maybe give that a check if you haven't already. So second painting is very different in colour story, and I did that on purpose to try out more of the markers, even though I did really enjoy making the desert scene. I spent a long time building up the background mountains, and I really like how they came out, as well as the sky and the lake. I used the blending with a finger technique again for both of these. It might have been easier if I had a paintbrush to hand, but all mine are currently packed away. I can't wait to have full access to my art supplies again. I loved making this tree stump as well. I did struggle with the lack of greys for this, as this was a very grey tree stump in the original photo, so I definitely took some creative liberties with the colours on this one. For the tree in the foreground, I didn't really plan ahead, and because of that it just blends into the background completely. I would initially put a base shade colour down first, like a dark brown or black, and then add the green layers on top afterwards, making sure to keep the shadow colour showing as a bit of a border to keep the tree from blending into the background. I really like the look of the darkest green then being layered with the lighter and lighter greens. It creates such a pretty effect. I think I've seen a lot of people doing this kind of technique with gouache paints. Again, with this tree in the top corner, I just didn't really plan ahead well enough. I should have continued the sky right the way across and then done the tree over the top, so I could have kept more of the gaps in the branches, like in the reference photo. So the massive green doesn't really make that much sense. I also don't think I initially went in with a dark enough shadow colour, so there's just very little contrast in that area compared to the rest of the piece. So these are the two pieces I ended up making, and I'm in love with them. I'm really annoyed that you only saw half of me filming this one because it is my favourite one out of the two, but we can't help that. Let me know which one was your favourite, and let me know if you use acrylic markers and what ones you use and whether you like them. Yeah, I think that's everything I have to say today, so thank you for watching and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!